The Detroit Lions are 6-2. We haven't discussed that on this program. It's the third hour, and the team that won Monday Night Football kind of slipped through the cracks here. And I understand that we do focus on controversy and we do focus on disgruntlement, which it appears that Davante Adams has. And he is supremely Hall of Fame talented and available, one would say, for the Godfather offer that comes Mark Davis's way in Vegas. But the Detroit Lions rebounded, folks. They got smoked in Baltimore, and they didn't do what the Niners did, which is continue losing. That didn't happen. What they did was unwrap Jahmyr Gibbs for the first time.
Did they ever?
Now, I was saying when they lost in Baltimore, they needed a running back with more sand in his pants because David Montgomery wasn't out there.
You did say that.
And he's that guy that is just, pinballing his way through defensive lines and taking away your will. Like, that's the way that you win football games when you're the Detroit Lions. You want to hit people, and you want to keep hitting them, and you want to keep hitting them hard. And Jahmyr Gibbs was the 12th overall selection in this draft, a surprise 12th overall selection that I heard on the night that he was drafted that the Lions beat several teams to the punch for the Alabama Crimson Tide running back that had been sort of placed in the shadows by Bijan Robinson's drafting and availability. And he had not done very much. He was hurt for a couple of weeks as well. And while Montgomery was out last week, I looked at this running game with Gibbs and with Craig Reynolds also being out. It didn't appear like Gibbs had, the physical aspect of his game to take on a Ravens defense that was marauding and rampaging. And plus, they fell behind so far. Clearly, Gibbs wasn't the one that was going to dig him out of that. But last night, he showed up, and he 100% took the will away from this Raiders defense that was taking the ball away from the Lions, a pick six being one. There was another, I would say, specious turnover when Craig Reynolds was in the middle of a mosh pit on the 3-yard line, and Max Crosby ripped the ball out while it did seem like Reynolds had his back on somebody's leg to keep his upper body off the turf, but the lower body that was hidden by a mosh pit, how in the world was he not down? But
that was weird. Be
that as it may, the Raiders defense, I think you could say, was showing up last night in a way that we've seen them show up.
They came up with a
right.
lot of
I mean, it was a 16-14 game in the third quarter.
Drives,
just 9 points for Detroit throughout much of the first half before that touchdown they hit the Raiders with. I mean, that was a 9-7 game going into the half until the Lions hit them with Laporta over the middle. But Gibbs was the difference maker last night. And then the defense took it over when Jimmy G was basically trying to make throws, and he couldn't. And then when he was still upright, he was missing Davante Adams, and the Lions are 6-2. That's what they are. And what they are is a 2 seed in the NFC right now. That's what they are. You are what you are. And what they did is they rebounded. They did not take that loss in Baltimore lightly. They did not take that loss in Baltimore and compound it with a proverbial home loss to a team they shouldn't lose to. They should take a team like the Raiders, the way that the Raiders are playing, the way that the Raiders are having team meetings and clearing air meetings and getting things off the chest meetings. You should take that team coming into your house with your physical nature and hit him in the mouth. And Gibbs had 6 touches in the first drive. 6. They just decided to make this a Jahmyr Gibbs game. Good move. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, people, the sun god as we refer to him over here, right? That kid is dynamite. Remember last year I said he was a top 10 receiver in the game? And I think you guys looked at me like I was crazy.
I don't think so. The man's name is Sun God.
he is a top 10 receiver in this sport, and that is saying a mouthful. Another 100-yard game for him. Another one. And his moves and speed after the catch is awesome. And he goes over the middle, and he can beat you deep. He's intermediate threat. He's a threat all over the place. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so that offensive line, when it gets cooking and when Montgomery gets back, this is going to be a B word of a team to get out. That's a fact. Detroit's next games, they are now on a bye. So they get healthier. And then they come back. They're at the Chargers here in Los Angeles before their first of 2 games against Green Bay. One in Week 11, one in Week 14. 2 games against Chicago. One in Week 11, one in Week 14. They have a chance to sweep the Packers. Remember, they won in Green Bay in Week 4. And that was a big game when the Packers had started well. And that was the beginning of a Packers downfall as well. Packers haven't won since that game. And so they then visit New Orleans, which could be a pretty damn big football game and a preview of 2 division winners going at it. Home for Denver, 2 games against Minnesota, which, as we know, is going to be maybe Josh Dobbs' team to quarterback. That game against Dallas, baby, December 30th. That's going to be a measuring stick game, and you know the Lions like to take a measuring stick and beat their opponents over the head with it.
Good luck.
Now, the Ravens took that stick from him and hit them on top of the head with it as well. True. And I'm just wondering, again, if that's going to be one of those you look back on and say, okie dokie. That is when it all kind of sunk into the Lions that they're not invincible and that if they're not completely on their P's and Q's against certain teams, they're going to get beat up. I'm wondering if we'll look back on the Dallas game as that way. I mean, on that Baltimore game is that way when they take on same teams like Dallas. And then one last thing, that game that they play in Chicago, Week 14, that is the last game they play outdoors. Yes, sir. Detroit in Los Angeles, indoors. Home for Chicago and Green Bay, and home for Denver, and home for Minnesota, indoors. At New Orleans, indoors. At Dallas, indoors. At Minnesota, indoors. That Chicago game in Chicago, Week 14, that is the only time they will be out of doors. And this team can beat you up, man, indoors for sure. And they're equipped to win outside in the cold, too. They're built. I like the way they're built. Obviously like the way they're coached. Just wanted to say those 2 cents on that subject matter since we were very Raiders heavy to begin. Question is, you take Detroit versus San Francisco right now. Who wins?
Detroit.
Wouldn't you agree? TJ?
At this present, the way the Niners are, yeah.
Yeah, no Debo, no Trent, right?
If the Niners are back healthy, Chris, it might be a different story, right? But
man, the key is Gibbs unlocked like he was yesterday.
It's like Campbell finally figured out how to use him.
Man, that's tough. That's a tough matchup for teams. Will Porta better than Kittle at the moment? Maybe you could make the argument.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.